During 2024, we've no doubt seen our fair share of amazing games by a handful of talented developers. But that doesn't mean that we didn't get the equivalent of projectile diarrhea here and there either. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 2024 has had its fair share of absolute atrocities in the gaming sphere. We've got the earliest example dating as far back as January with the release of the year's first biggest blunder, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, a live service clusterfuck that is sadly set in the same universe as one of the only superhero franchises that is actually worth a damn playing. Then, in February, we got the release of the gaming industry's first quadruple A game with Skull and Bones, a game that I made a full video on, by the way, so if you want more information on that game, watch both this and that video to maximize my profit margin. Also within the same month, we got Foamstars, a game that I'm not going to waste any of your time of talking about in this video, so here, go ahead and watch that as well. I'd like to have another video to reach more than 10k views this year, so get on it. And the most recent addition to the series of crappy cash cows is Ubisoft's first take on the Star Wars IP with Star Wars Outlaws. And let me say, yeah. Yippee! You son of a bitch, she lived! But despite the overall reception to each of these games, you can still at the very least say that they've still got their own fans despite how little there actually are. And with these games that are live service, at the very least they still can be played despite how many people actually still do. I cannot, however, say the exact same thing for this video's topic, a game that's publisher desperately wanted it to be a thing, but is facing a complete shutdown in the next 2 days. And that game, ladies and gentlemen, is Concord. Now, goodness me, where the hell did all this go wrong? Well, for starters, a little bit of history on the development of this game. Starting development somewhere around 2016 by Dev Firewalk Studios. Never mind then, that's the only information that the Wikipedia page gives me to work with. So I suppose I'm going to need to go off of my own memories that I have with this game. Being revealed at a PlayStation's showcase back in 2023, this is probably the very first time that Concord was properly showcased to the entire world. And in this trailer, we get to see the Milano from Guardians of the Galaxy violently shake around as it seems to be heading into hyperdrive. Then we get the title, and then we don't get to hear anything about the game for at least another year. The next time that we get a proper little whiff of what Concord is was at the 2024 PlayStation State of Play hosted during May. And what did we get? A very pretty cinematic trailer that showcases something that wouldn't feel out of place in a Guardians of the Galaxy spin-off, with absolutely no gameplay anywhere in sight. It's almost like Sony's done this before. Oh no, wait, ignore me, because we finally get to see some gameplay footage from the game, and it's a 5v5 hero shooter akin to games like Overwatch. And not only that, this game looks like a hodgepodge between other games as well, like Destiny and Call of Duty. Well, I didn't really know what to expect from this game, nor do I know what the overall public was assuming Concord was going to be, but I'm pretty sure a 5v5 hero shooter in the vast expanse of already existing IPs in this genre is not something that I think anybody was expecting. And then once again, Concord just kinda went quiet. The only real word of this game coming from PlayStation's own YouTube channel, where they uploaded videos of some character showcases, some animated shorts, as well as a promotion for the game's beta at the time. But honestly, nothing really too substantial that would get people hyped about this game. And if you even look at the view counts that some of these videos got, nobody really watched any of these. For such a, what seemed like a big budget hero shooter from PlayStation themselves, only for them to barely showcase the actual game at all, is really worrying to me. And judging on what some YouTubers had to say about the game's beta, yeah, this doesn't seem to be the best look for the game either. But hey, I mean, this is all just pre-release press. For all we know, when the game officially comes out, maybe the tide will start to shift into a more positive light. Oh. Yeah, that's not good. Okay, let me start beating around the bush. Concord has got to be, without a doubt, the biggest L I think I've seen in all of my years of being a gamer, with having such a huge company backing it like PlayStation, to it having a pretty fucking sizable budget, to being released with close to zero fanfare by the very same publisher that was responsible for trying to ensure the game's success, to us now staring at the game's final moments. This has gotta be without a doubt one of the saddest things I've ever seen coming from this year in terms of gaming, and really anything if I'm being honest. But you know what? With the power of hindsight, the writing was essentially on the wall the second that Sony announced this project. And while doing my own little research when making this video, it shocked the ever-living shit out of me how bad the failure of this project actually was. But before I get into that, let me also get this out of the way. I myself have never played Concord whatsoever. It would have been a potential video at some point had this game lasted long enough, but seeing that it's now even impossible to even purchase this game on Steam, and I'm assuming the PS5, what I'm going to be covering in this video will have to do. So in terms of its overall gameplay, how it feels, and all sorts of other shit like that, I can't really comment on it aside from what I've mentioned. It just came off to me like a hero shooter equivalent to something like Destiny. But still, how Sony thought that this game was going to succeed at all will forever remain a mystery to me. When you look at the obvious issues plaguing Concord's development. For starters, the type of genre it was trying to cater to. Hero shooters? I mean, Overwatch, Paladins, Team Fortress 2, Valorant, The Finals, Apex Legends. Do I need to say more? Instead of trying to create something that could potentially stand out on its own, Sony thought it would be a great idea to attempt to cash in on a genre that already has so many different games attached to it. People are already set in stone as devoted fans of currently existing IPs in this landscape. So how was Sony ever going to be able to get players' attention? Plus, sprinkling other elements from games like Call of Duty and Destiny into the mix, you're digging yourself even a bigger grave, because now you're even incorporating more elements from other IPs that already have their own fan bases that Concord was just never ever going to be able to wiggle itself into. Another thing from looking at the few gameplay videos I watched, the game itself just doesn't seem to have anything interesting going for it in both its visuals and its overall gameplay. This just looks like any kind of first-person shooter we've seen a million times at this point. And what I find even more stupid is that I have absolutely zero idea how this type of gameplay is supposed to play into the fun and adventurous Guardians of the Galaxy-esque vibe that this game was trying to go for. It just looks so generic, despite the different elements they tried to introduce to appeal to hero shooter fans. And I have no idea what the story of this game would have been like, but if I'm being completely honest here with you, I also feel like it was also going to try and appeal to another oversaturated genre, you know, being that whole zany, quirky characters going on adventure sort of thing. I mean, with that kind of writing, I'm already kind of burnt out with that, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person saying that. But the things I've talked about thus far isn't anywhere near what I think the cause of Concord's failure is. No, if you've paid attention to the start of the video, Sony just didn't seem to give a flying fuck in trying to promote this game to anybody. So, allow me to elaborate further. Within the course of the game's reveal to the gameplay trailer, there was a drought of about a year where there was nothing said about the game. And by the time Sony finally revealed the game with its cinematic and gameplay trailer, I just think at this point people already moved on. I don't think I ever recall seeing videos where people were trying to hype up this game, only that the game was indeed coming out and that it was Sony's brand new hero shooter. And what Sony themselves did to try and keep hype going for this game? Those view numbers don't lie, folks. Nobody cared enough to give this game a thought. And I think all that lack of marketing and care from potential fans culminated on the game's actual release date on August 23rd, where the game was met with a peak player base of 660 players on Steam. Now, I don't know how player numbers might have been on the PS5, but 660 peak players on the same platform where one of Sony's biggest games peaked at over 400,000, I can't imagine that the console that has no games really fared any better. And after watching a video that Mudahar made on this entire topic, it's reported that the game only really sold fewer than 25,000 units. So, what the actual fuck? And Sony didn't even really seem to care enough to really support the game post-launch. You see this? This is almost all I could find on PlayStation's Twitter mentioning the game. And the only other thing really regarding Concord was this DualSense controller that I will admit looks pretty cool, but fucking hell, wait to try and save a sinking ship. But sadly, at this point, the damage has already been done. As of the 3rd of September, being yesterday as I'm writing the script, it's been announced that Concord will be going offline on the 6th. So that would mean 8 years, a reported $100 to $200 million budget, all just gone in the next 2 days. This is really a sad story. But I just can't wrap my head around how Sony at any point could have seen this game as becoming the next best thing. And that brings me up to another point. I have no idea what the vision for Concord was when the development started 8 years ago, but it wouldn't surprise me if the game it started out as was completely different from what we ended up getting. But regardless, not promoting your game and making it a game in the genre that is already so oversaturated already spelled disaster for Concord in 2 ways. But I'd also argue that there are 2 more additions to why I think that this game would just have never stuck the landing. The first of which being the fact that what happened with Helldivers 2, you needed to have a PlayStation account in order to play Concord, meaning that 121 countries still don't have access to their service and wouldn't be capable of playing this game even if they really wanted to. And how PlayStation didn't look at how this negatively affected Helldivers 2 and thought Concord would be free from such scrutiny is beyond me. And the second thing, and the biggest reason why I also think that Concord was never going to make a splash in the mainstream, is the fact that the game is $40. $40 for an uninspired game in an oversaturated market where almost every single offering aside from a few of these games are free to play. How the fuck did anyone look at that and thought that that would have been a good idea? I think the reason why Helldivers 2 was able to get away with having that price tag stapled to it was that Helldivers 2 was actually, you know, a fun game and is a way more unique concept than just another fucking hero shooter. So why Sony thought that this would be worthy enough to have such a steep price point for a game in the genre that is easily more accessible elsewhere will never make any lick of sense to me. And that also leads me to another question. Why take the game offline and not just make it free to play? Another game that I mentioned earlier in this video was Foamstars. Since that game also didn't really make a splash that I'm sure both Square Enix and PlayStation wanted it to, instead of just saying to hell with it and everyone who invested time into it and take away your ability to play it, instead, on October, the game is going to be released as a free-to-play title so everybody can still play it. I understand that Concord is a way bigger game that had undoubtedly way more money pumped into it, but still, how hard would it have been to just repackage it as a free-to-play game? And then for all we know, maybe word could spread around much faster and then you can get more people on board with the project. You know, at least more than 660 players. But like I said, by this point, the damage has already been done, and nothing can really salvage this game anymore, and that is really sad. I understand that I haven't really been all that jokey in this video like I normally would be, and if you followed me on Twitter, I was roasting the shit out of this game like a motherfucker because of how badly it fell off. But still, this is incredibly sad. I could give less of a shit about Sony. I would literally argue the fact that they are completely to blame for this game's failure. But the people who worked on this project, with the failure of a game to this extent, there is no doubt in my mind that some of these people are gonna get laid off and lose their jobs because of Concord. And that is incredibly sad. And what brings my blood to a boil is that I don't think Sony for shit is going to learn from this, and they'll just try something again later down the line until they find something that sticks. I just really hope that it doesn't come at the cost of people's livelihoods. I really wish the best for the people that were involved in Concord's development, and if they do get laid off, I hope they're still able to find some work elsewhere, because I'm still 100% sure that it was all thanks to Sony that they steered the game's direction into something that the team wasn't too on board for from the start. But that's something that we're just gonna have to wait for. But as for now, this is the story of how Concord became Sony's $200 million $1 failure.